What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the world according to Briggs and another video about a city in Michigan. Ever since I did a video about Detroit 2 or 3 years ago, people have been asking me to do one on Grand Rapids, Michigan. I've looked into it a couple times and really didn't find anything terribly bad about this city. Sure, it has some things that could be better and that probably need some work, like all cities, but nothing really jumps out at you. This video will have a mix of reasons you might not want to live there, complaints the locals have, and things you might want to know before you move to this city. Now, I'm sure some of you want to say, why not just make a positive video about Grand Rapids? It's a simple answer. Nobody watches videos like that. They get about a quarter of the views that a negative video gets. I make them occasionally, but 90% aren't even worth the effort when it comes to views. And if you're a YouTuber, you need views. Like I always say, if you want nothing but positive information about a place, contact a real estate agent or pull up the city's tourism website. All right, let's see what a city with the nickname Beer City is all about. Number 10. Bad roads. If you live in Grand Rapids, you already know they have some roads that need some work. In 2017, Grand Rapids, Michigan wasn't even in the top 10 cities with the highest percentage of roads considered to be in poor condition. In 2018, they were number 9, and in 2019, they cracked the top 5 at the number 5 spot. 54% of the roads are considered to be in poor shape in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Get car insurance that might cover suspension or tire damage if you could find it. It's totally worth it in this city. The other one that's actually worse than this is New Orleans. I wouldn't even drive my car in New Orleans. Grand Rapids isn't that bad, but yeah. While we're on the subject of roads, might as well bring up the fact that apparently the parking enforcement in Grand Rapids is insane. They don't cut anyone any slack, and some people think that the city is trying to make up budget differences on parking tickets alone. Yeah, that's a big complaint for the locals, apparently. Number 9. It's a college town. This is a college town, in some cases, a bit too much of a college town. Most people not from this part of the country might not know that this city has any colleges, much less the 15 they have. That's right, there are at least 15 institutions of higher education in the Grand Rapids metro area. Some public, some private, and some private religious universities. This city is like a one-stop shop for higher education. You can learn just about anything here. Grand Rapids has around 50,000 college students if you add up all the campuses. So why is this a problem? If you ever lived in a college town, you know there's a lot of things that suck about it. But as far as college towns go, they don't have major problems like other ones do. They have some minor annoyances that can add up. They have jobs, but sometimes they're either seasonal because of the school schedule or because recent grads want to stay in Grand Rapids. There's some competition for good jobs that the locals complain about. Not killer problems, not horrible problems, just annoyances. Traffic can pick up during the school year. Not bad, but it is noticeable. It's not a party school, but a large majority of the weekend arrests have to do with college kids. Nothing horrible, it's just a headache. One good thing about Grand Rapids, it's considered one of the safest college towns in the US. So that's a positive. Number 8. The rent increase. Rent is getting crazy in Grand Rapids. Buying a home becomes the smarter option every single month with every single increase. Last year, rent in Grand Rapids increased 8.07% on average. In the last few months before COVID-19, the average rent increased 3.4%. According to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, an individual must make $20.98 per hour working a full-time job to afford a 3-bedroom apartment, far more than Michigan's $8.70 minimum wage. In Grand Rapids, 33% of the renters spend at least half their income on rent. Nationally, that average is 15%. As the number of college students grow in Grand Rapids, landlords would rather rent to them because they are more likely to be able to afford higher rents, as opposed to families trying to survive on 1 or 1.5 incomes. And where it really gets bad is the state of Michigan has laws in place where local governments aren't allowed to pass ordinances or legislation that imposes rent control on housing units at all. There's none of that. Yeah, I get the free market and all that stuff, but that sucks for the locals. Number 7. Growing too fast. Growing fast is a good thing in a lot of ways. Your stock's growing fast is good. Your bank account is good. The distance between you, your drink, and Bill Cosby at a party, that's great. But sometimes when things are growing too fast, it can be a problem, like your lawn, your tumor, or your medium city. The people Grand Rapids lost during the recession are coming back. In the 2010 census, the city itself lost 5% of its population, which equated to about 10,000 people. Not the metro area, just the city. They had 198,000 people, and this took them down to 188,000. During this year's census 2020, they estimate the city gained another 24,000 residents, bringing them up over 200,000. For a medium city, this can cause some problems, like rent increases, which we just talked about. The cost of living is going up, and the jobs get harder to come by. Now, the cost of living is still low, but it's projected to increase at a good clip in the coming years. Grand Rapids is expected to continue its steady growth that surpasses the state average. Now, here's some quick facts. As of 2019, Grand Rapids is the 122nd most populated city in the United States, and it's the second largest city in Michigan. There are 4,587 people per square mile, and the average age in Grand Rapids is only 31 years old, so it's a relatively, young city. That has a lot to do with the college students. And for every 100 females, there are 97 males, so they got a little advantage there. Number 6, bad drivers. Grand Rapids has some of the worst drivers in the state. They have two factors that we've already talked about that play into this: bad roads and college students. Bad roads present a bunch of problems, and the college kids just tend to not be familiar with the area and spend a lot of time running into stuff. In 2019, there were over 22,000 crashes in Grand Rapids. The age range for over half those accidents was 23 to 34. Over 30% of the fatal car accidents occurred at intersections. The most dangerous intersection in the city is State Highway 131 and Wealthy Street in Grand Rapids. Get good car insurance. Not cheap car insurance. I mean, get a quote, but get good car insurance. Number 5, the snow. They get too much snow in Grand Rapids. If you've ever had to shovel snow, you know it sucks. The first time you do it, it's not that bad, but when you have to do it like 3 or 5 days in a row, it gets old quick. I have a friend who grew up in Saginaw, Michigan, with his grandmother. He said she'd ask him to shovel the snow and he hated it. And he'd tell her later, and if he put it off too long, she would start playing church music really loud to drive him out of the house and into the cold to do some shoveling. The record for Grand Rapids as far as snowfall is 132 inches back in 1951 and 52. Grand Rapids is one of the snowiest places in the U.S., getting on average 65 inches per year. The U.S. average is only 28 inches a year. You'll see the most snow in January, and the record for January is 27.7 inches. Now, in February, it ranges anywhere from 20 inches for heavy snowfall to 7.6 inches in light years. Grand Rapids typically sees its first snow around November, but every 3 or 4 years they might see it in October. The last snowfall is typically the beginning of April. Make sure you invest in a lot of winter gear and a good shovel or one of those snow blowers. Snow blowers are pretty fun. Number 4, urban sprawl. The beer city, the river city, it's got a few nicknames. Grand Rapids is definitely spread out. The center of the city, which includes downtown, is fairly dense, but much of the city is sprawled out across more than 40 square miles. You will need a car if you move to Grand Rapids. You can get around using public transportation, but you're really going to want a car. It doesn't have a good walkability score. Actually, it's in the bottom 20 or 25, depending on which study you're looking at, out of 300 cities. I imagine it gets pretty rough walking around this city in the winter anyway. I go downtown Portland, Oregon during the winter and see people falling all over the place all the time. And we don't get half the snow and ice they get. Yeah, my advice is definitely buy a car or have a car if you're moving to Grand Rapids, Michigan. Number 3, crime. This one is weird. Like all cities, Grand Rapids has some crime. Their crime isn't one of the worst, it's definitely not one of the best. When you look at other cities in the state, they're doing really well. This is a state that has Detroit and Flint, Michigan in it. So as long as Grand Rapids is in the same state with those two, they'll always look good. But here's a couple strange stats. The overall crime rate in Grand Rapids is 1% lower than the national average. Now I know I just said they have some crime, so how are they 1% lower than the national average and I'm bringing crime up here? This is why. The violent crime rate in Grand Rapids is 72% higher than the national average. They aren't robbing each other here, and they're not stealing each other's stuff. They go straight to hurting each other. It's kind of a weird stat. So don't buy insurance for all your stuff. Just get health insurance, because you may need it living here. Number 2, no rapids. Now, here we have one of those things I said is more of something you should know and not really a reason to cancel your mortgage application. Grand Rapids doesn't have rapids anymore. People that visit and go look at the Grand River will wonder where all the rapids are, and they may even ask a local where the rapids are. I will spare you some eye rolling that will be directed towards you if you ask this. Grand Rapids gets its name from the Grand River and the rapids that used to help the local furniture industry with transporting logs and stuff down the river. They used to have a serious furniture making industry here. That's actually another one of its nicknames, the Furniture City. In the early 1900s, flood walls were installed in the river to help manage flooding. This removed the rapids. The city was founded in 1826 and incorporated in 1850. They had rapids for at least 75 years, and the name sort of stuck. So yeah, there's no rapids in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Keep that in mind. There are some really nice flood walls, so go down to the river and enjoy those. Everyone loves a good flood wall. That was gonna be my son's middle name, Floodwall Briggs. My wife put the kibosh on that. And number 1. The homeless problem. Grand Rapids has a homeless problem. Some people like to believe that the only person with the problem is the actual homeless person. That is a problem for them, but I see it as the city or state has dropped the ball at some point too for a lot of these people. Now I know all the stats. Homelessness is normally a result of mental illness or some form of addiction or substance abuse or whatever. I get that, but that's not always the case. Most Americans are a couple missed paychecks away from landing on the streets themselves. I'm sure we are going to see a serious increase in this in the near future because of the whole COVID-19 pandemic thing. There's over 800 homeless people in the greater Grand Rapids area right now. More than half of those people are families with children. Winter can be the most difficult time of the year for people living without a home. And as we've already discussed, it gets cold in Grand Rapids. The rising home prices and rental prices are putting a lot of the people on the streets, more and more as the rent prices climb. Michigan was actually reported to have one of the largest population of homeless students in the U.S., ranking number 6 in the whole country. Number 6. It's not good. That's something they really need to work on. All right, so that's today's list. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Like I said, this one was kind of a weird one. They had a couple things that were bad, but most of them really weren't that bad. Grand Rapids, the crime and a few other things, those are bad, but it's really not that terrible of a city at all. It's actually a nice city once you get past some of the problems. Anyway, if you like what we're doing here, please feel free to subscribe, give the video a big thumbs up, tell me what you thought in the comment section below. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.